Hello, Nigel Hill's middle school science classes. This is student teacher, Mr. Lindenblad. Today we'll be going over the evolutionary history and relationships STEMscopedia. This is part 1. Are birds related to dinosaurs? Years ago, this question spawned heated debates and controversy among many scientists. Today, the scientific community generally accepts the idea that birds and dinosaurs share a common ancestor. What changed? Did scientists find evidence to support this theory? If so, what sort of evidence did they find? And an ancestor is an organism from which other organisms evolved. The fossil record. Many pieces of evidence support the theory that birds and dinosaurs are related. One such piece of evidence, the fossil record, is the accumulation of all fossilized remains that scientists have collected around the world. Although the fossil record provides evidence to support the theory of common ancestry among different organisms, it is not a complete record. The trail of the feathers. Multiple lines of evidence indicate that one branch of dinosaurs evolved into birds. One piece of evidence is the presence of feathers. The earliest evidence for feathers is in the group of dinosaurs known as Maniraptora. Maniraptora first appeared in the Jurassic era. Simple feathers similar to the down of today's birds were found in the earliest members of this group. More recent members provide evidence of feathers closer to the feathers of today's birds. The Archaeopteryx is one link between dinosaurs and birds. Anatomical homologies. Similar anatomical structures that exist between species and can be identified as a link to a common ancestor. Anatomical homologies are similarities and differences between organisms living today and those in the fossil record enable scientists to infer lines of evolutionary descent. Paleontologists compare the embryological development of different species to reveal similarities that show relationships not evident in the fully formed anatomy. A paleontologist is a scientist who studies prehistoric life. Cladogram. A cladogram is one way to depict evolutionary relationships. It only shows the relationships. It does not show how much different animals have changed from each other. Look at the cladogram to the left. The common ancestor of the mouse and chimp had fur and mammillary glands. Cladograms for living animals show the traits used to separate them. You'll be giving a few questions to look at. The first one is, what trait separates hagfish from the rest of the animals? We can see on this cladogram that hagfish are the animal all the way to the left. Just to the right of that animal is the perch, which is a fish, and then so on it goes: salamander, lizard, pigeon, mouse, chimp, onwards. If we look towards the bottom, we can see one word that separates hagfish from the rest of the animals. In this case, it shows us what difference, what the hagfish is lacking that the fish have. It is the word that is in between hagfish and fish, and will give you an indication of what changed between these two animals. You can look at this map, you can look at this cladogram, and think about it, and we'll give you all the answers to the next few questions. In this example, all the animals in the cladogram above have backbones. Write how you would change the cladogram to include the organisms below. So this is an amoeba. An amoeba is an organism made of a single cell. So we know that all of the other animals on the cladogram do not have a single cell. So we could put the amoeba to the left and all the other animals to the right, and in between the amoeba and other animals, we could put in a word that means it is not single-celled. That is one way to answer this. Bones can indicate common ancestry. Paleontologists have compared bone structures in organisms for years to determine common ancestry among organisms. A likeness between the bone structures of two creatures may indicate a common ancestor. Mammals, birds, and reptiles all show similar anatomical patterns. Although the function of each is different, this diagram shows similarities in the anatomical structures of forelimbs in mammals, the bat and human, birds, a penguin, and reptiles, an alligator. You can see from the color coding how the bones are the same type of bone in different animals, but their shape changes due to the function changing. Some animals have not changed over millions of years. They are called living fossils. One example is the horseshoe crab. The earliest horseshoe crab fossils are found in the Ordovician period from about 450 million years ago. Fossil horseshoe crabs look almost exactly the same as the ones living today. While they look a little like crabs, they are actually more closely related to spiders. The nautilus is another example of a living fossil. Ancestors of the nautilus first appeared about 500 million years ago in the Cambrian period. Nautiluses can propel themselves through the water. They are predators and live deep in the ocean. Evolutionary relationships can be Evolutionary relationships can be depicted on phylogenetic trees. Branches at the top have the most recent species. Closely related organisms with a common ancestor are shown as branches that extend from the ancestor. Recent life is at the top ends of the branches, while past life is shown further down the tree. A typical family is shown on the left as an example. And you can see on this example where you, your sibling, your parents, your cousins, your aunts, and possibly your uncle, and your grandparent will all lie on this phylogenetic tree. So you and your siblings are at the top, where your grandparents older are toward the bottom. Evolutionary trees show two different things. Most importantly, they show the relationships between living animals and their most recent common ancestor. They also show the time that separates organisms. For example, in the tree above, the branch between protist and sponge is shorter than the branch leading from the tree to the animals labeled Coleoptera. This implies that it took a shorter time to evolve sponges. That will be it for part 1. Look for part 2 to explain the next part about making a phylogenetic tree.